Hello, Kickstarters. Well, welcome to webinar 2, which if you've now been in post for 2 to 3 months, it's probably now time for you to start building your CV so that we can help you get your next post and get some permanent employment. So this webinar is really starting to look at your employability as an individual and as a person. So by now, if you've started your role, if it is your first job ever, you'll start to understand a little bit about business etiquette, behaviours at work, and what's expected of you in the workplace. So we're going to talk to you today about how to build your CV and really make the most of it, and tips and tricks really to think about, and do's and don'ts, and how to really ensure that you can get yourself shortlisted so that you can get in front of that employer. Okay, so the first thing then is typically there are 2 types of CV to think about. Now, the first type that I'm going to talk to you about is a traditional CV. Of course, CV stands for curriculum vitae, and it really focuses on the experience that you've had in the workplace. And this is where, if you are a student or you've just fresh out of school, it can be very difficult to build a chronological CV. And typically, this is a quick example. We're going to show you some CVs as well a bit later on. But as you can see, in a chronological CV, in a very basic one, you would literally start with your most recent employment and then you go back. And as you can see, this person started on a market stall. They then went to Boots, the pharmacy, and now they're a supervisor in Next Retail. So that you can see that they've progressed, but generally you can see that their experience is in retail. So underneath each of these specifics, you would then include a short description underneath of what you did within your role and any key kind of deliverables and experience that you gained at this level and within this post. So then we have a more modern CV, which is what we're all kind of moving towards, and employers are especially looking at these now because they're not so bothered about what work experience you've got, but they're more bothered about what can this person do. Now, this is absolutely great if you are a student or you're fresh out of school and you haven't really got much work experience, because it can really focus on a key competency of ability, key skills, and sometimes they are referred to as functional CVs. So this really focuses on what you're good at. Now, there can be sort of hard skills and soft skills, which we'll go into in a minute. But here's some examples: excellent verbal communication, experienced in customer services, proficient in Microsoft Office applications. So regardless of whether you have got much work experience, so even if you've worked behind a bar, but you've now got a degree and you want to go into accountancy, you can still see that those skills there and those sort of abilities that you can put down demonstrate what you can offer an employer. So this is quite good, but one of the key messages that I want to get across around CV training is it's really, really important that you tweak your CV depending on the role that you go to. So for example, if you were doing a manual gardening role, it might be more about teamwork and the ability to follow instruction and communication, as opposed to Microsoft Office application. So let's move on and let's just talk a little bit more then about the difference between technical skills and soft skills. So technical skills are sometimes known as hard skills, and these are skills that you've been trained in or that you have learned, which could be job specific, but you could have learned them in another capacity. So we've got some examples here. There is endless examples that you can use. Microsoft Office is the most kind of obvious one, because you might be self-taught, you might have learned at school, you might have learned within a role itself. But if you've got, experience and you've learnt about Microsoft Office and how to use those applications, that's a hard skill. It might be that you've got specific skills in SEO and marketing, and you can see some other examples there. So I've tried to give you a kind of random hard skills, like if you're a drummer, then you've obviously learnt how to do that. But you could be an IT person and you've had to learn a first line fix, or it might be sort of about software applications. So those are hard skills. So just remember, hard skills are things that I have specifically learnt or been trained in. Your softer skills are more about personable skills and behaviour and habits that you might have learnt, but that you can apply in the workplace. So you may have learnt them in school or in college or university, or you may have had other roles, like a Saturday job or a part-time role whilst you've been in education. And these are all skills that you've learned within the workplace, but they do say a lot about you. So if you're organised, if you're a team player, excellent communication, if you're a problem solver, etc., etc. So think hard skills, training and learning, soft skills about me. Okay, so this is all kind of good things for you to think about. And as part of your homework, I would really like you to start thinking about this. So have a look at your own CV now. And, you know, have you pitched it hard skills only and no soft skills? Or have you just gone with soft skills and no technical? If you're going to do a functional CV, and if you are a Kickstarter, this is probably a really good one for you to do. You need a combination of the two things. Okay. So we talk about very much your CV is a little bit like your toolkit. What have you got in your toolkit? And it's really good practice to think about what you're actually going to put in that CV, because occasionally, you know, I've met young people and they find it very difficult and they go, well, I haven't done anything. But actually, you've done loads in your life, but you've just not done it in a workplace. Now, all of those skills and all of that experience is still transferable, so you must use it. Now, we would always recommend that a CV is nice and short. You don't put loads of waffle in there, nice and short, nice and crisp. Now, it's okay to have a one-pager when you first start out, but even professional people, really, they have got a lot of experience, you'd only really have 2 pages. And if you go to an agency, they will really encourage you to get it down to 2 pages. Some agencies would say, I'm not having it if it's not less than 2 pages. So try and make it nice and crisp. It's only really once you've been in a profession for a number of years where you've got a real kind of sense of you've delivered something for an organisation that you may have 3 pages. But even then, no more than 3 pages. A recruiter or a HR manager sifting through lots of CVs will not look at more than 3 pages. They will get bored if you're like me, and I have to go through hundreds of CVs sometimes for roles, even for senior roles. If I see just a backdrop of narrative, I think, oh God, I can't be bothered to go through that really. I want to see it jump out on the page, and I want to get a sense of what that person can offer for this role in a couple of minutes, really. Okay. So we would also try and get you to start to think about, what do you normally deliver in this job? So what is the job? And then what are your key achievements? That's also a really good thing. So as you start to build your CV, as the years go by, what have you achieved within that role? What are the key things that you're really, really proud of? And it's really good to blow your trumpet. This is one of those times where we want you to tell us what you've been really good at, what you've succeeded at, and what you are really, really proud of. Don't be afraid to say that in your CV. But of course, the language that you use has to be professional and it has to be nice and summarised. Okay. And again, stick to the facts. It's okay to blow your trumpet, but don't make things up, because you will get caught out. So if you manage to get shortlisted and, you know, you say you've ruled the world for 3 years, well, a recruiter and a business owner is going to want to know all about that. So you'd have to get your story straight, and you'd have to be able to demonstrate it when you're in the role. So stick to the facts. You don't need to inflate things, because remember, some of the roles that you're going to be going for are kind of first level entrance roles, and people are going to recruit you for your attitude and behaviours. They're not so interested in some of the abilities, although they want you to use your initiative. And they want you to use your brains, but they're really interested in, has this person got the right attitude and behaviours, and will they fit into our organisational culture? Okay. And then just a note about hobbies and photographs. This is something that we don't really encourage in the UK, unless, of course, they're very relevant, and unless, of course, it adds to your skill set. So if you've only got 2 pages, and there is really no space for a hobby, we would say don't put it on. If you're struggling to put down skills and competencies, or put down experience, if you've been in the Brownies and you've got a certain set of skills that you did, like survival skills, for example, then put it on, because it shows something about your character, something about your resilience, and maybe you're a team player. So put it on, but only if it's relevant. And in terms of photographs, unless you are applying for a specific job which specifically asks you for a photograph, we would always encourage you not to put a photograph on. And this is because discrimination can be there in lots of different guises, without organisations even realising. So as a HR company, we would say don't put your photograph on, because there's something called the halo and horns effect. And if somebody doesn't even like the look of you, you might not get shortlisted. Sadly, this is the world that we live in. So good practices for recruiters that they shouldn't even ask for photographs, but we would say don't put them on unless you are specifically requested to do so. So let's just talk about some of the other things that you might put in a CV. Obviously, we would want you to look at positive language, and we would get you, there's always an introductory paragraph, which is about you. And this is a kind of summary about you. Now, in that language, we'd want you to put in a little bit about, you know, what are you like as a person, and what are your sort of dreams about what you want to achieve in life. So and it isn't about, you know, I want to be a racing Formula 1 driver. It's about, you know, I want to achieve a sense of purpose. I want to be able to contribute positively to a business. I'm really hardworking. I'm very dependable, and I want to work with a company like, you know. So, and that statement has to be very, very crisp. And this is something that we would get you to work with your mentor on, in terms of the language that you use and how you come across. Now, remember, a recruiter is going to read that little introduction about you, and they can be absolutely turned off if they get a sense of an ego or arrogance, or, you know, if you say, well, I can do any job, I'm going to be brilliant. It's probably not quite the same way as, you know, I'm looking to build a career in this industry, and, you know, I'd really like to work for a company, da, 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 da. Okay. Qualifications, let's just have a chat about that. Recruiters and organisations, they're really, really looking for a summary of your qualifications. So depending on the role, they're looking for, have they got maths and English at C and above? You know, if you haven't got C and above, as long as you've got maths and English and you've got a qualification, then that's fine, or it can be the equivalent of. You really don't need to put, I got an A in history, a B in science, a C. They're really looking for, especially if you're struggling for space on your CV, they're looking for 9 GCSEs, maths and English C or above, or whatever it is. And so you really need to hone in on maths and English, because that's what people are really interested in at GCSE level. If you've got a degree, you can just say what your degree is and say, you know, whether it's a pass or whatever. And they're not that interested in kind of it's a City and Guilds, a GCSE, and I took it in June 2010, or, you know, 2020. They're not interested in what month. They're just interested in what is it and did you pass it? Okay, so think about that, because you don't want to take up lots and lots of space about your qualifications. So we've talked a little bit about, you know, blowing your own trumpet and saying, and underneath, if you are doing some experiential type of CV, it's good to say what you delivered on. And don't think that it doesn't count because, you know, it was a Saturday job or it was a newspaper round. It doesn't matter. Every little bit counts. So say what you delivered on. For example, if you did a paper round, saying that you never ever missed a paper round and you were always reliable and you took on extra shifts if somebody else was off, it says a lot about you. So put it in. And then the words, the type of words that you led, the words that you used, it's very good to say, I led on, I developed, I contributed to, I organised, I was responsible for, I helped with, I was a team worker, you know. So it's all about you. And that positivity on that wording is really important. So let's just look at now at what we're trying to do here with your CV. So remember, getting a job, it's all about playing the game, really. It's all about, here's a job and here's a profile for the job. And we will go more into this next time on webinar 3. So here is a job description and a person specification. So you're going to apply for this job. So there are some rules to the game, really. And what you have to do is you have to make sure that you align to that job. So if you are sending a CV, we need to make sure that it absolutely matches to that job. So if you don't mirror in your CV what they're asking for in the job, well, you're not going to get shortlisted. And the person spec gives you clues to what they're looking for. So a job description breaks down the description of the role and what you're going to be doing. But when you're applying for a job and you're using your CV, you need to look at the person specification. And this will tell you what they want from the person. Okay, so the job is what the job does, and the person specification is the type of person they need to do that job. Okay, so have a look at the person specification, and if it says we need a year's experience in, or we need you to be organised, or we need you to be able to lead a team or work as part of a team, or we need you to be proficient in Microsoft Office, then all of those things need to be in your CV. If they're not, if the two things don't match, you will not get shortlisted for the job. Okay, so you just have a think about that whilst you're applying, and we'll do more on this on webinar 3. Then once you're happy that you kind of match the role, we then need to get you to ensure that you format that document. First impressions is everything. It needs to be pristine. It needs to be no more than 2 pages, 3 maximum if it's a really kind of complicated role or professional role that you're going for. And I cannot tell you guys how many times I have thrown out a perfectly good CV because there are spelling errors in it, or because it just looks like a shambles, because that tells me that this person has no attention to detail, or it might say, I don't really care much for this job or how I come across to this employer, in which case I'm not going to, you know, shortlist you. And so it's important that if you struggle with detail, or if you struggle with formatting a document and you need help because you're a more practical or a vocational person, that's absolutely fine, but get somebody to help you with it. And you can reach out to your mentors on the Kickstart program and they will give you some help and advice and guidance. Okay, so make sure you proofread it. And you may need a good, relevant covering letter. And again, there'll be more about that when we do webinar 3 on specifically applying for roles. Right, so the don'ts. Again, just to reiterate to you, don't put a headshot in there unless you are specifically required to do so. You do not need to put in your marital status or your sexual preference or whether your gender even. You don't need to put in your date of birth. And basically, this is moving on to anything that's a protected characteristic. So under the Equalities Act, what it says is that we all should be protected from discrimination. And there are 9 protected characteristics. I'm going to show you those on the next slide. And again, you do not need to put in lots of detail around your qualifications. Keep it nice and crisp. Hobbies, only if they complement your skill or you're really struggling on space and you've got too much space and not enough information. And again, you don't need to put your references in unless specifically requested. So you can say references on request if you're struggling for space, or you can put them in if you really need to, but you wouldn't really share the name and the email address and number of your reference. You might just put the company in, or you might just say lecturer at uni or what have you, because you don't want to be sharing other people's information unless you really need to. And if you are going to get references, you do need to tip off your referee so that they can know to expect it, because you don't want to have any delays. Especially if you get offered a job. Okay, so this is why we don't say put anything in your CV about these 9 protected characteristics, because we don't want you to be discriminated unnecessarily. So anything about race, marriage, religion, if you've got a disability, if you're pregnant, if you have had gender reassignment, or sexual orientation, or specifically age, we would not put any of those signals in your CV. Now, obviously, if you have a specific name, it might give the game away about your race and ethnicity. Well, we can't change that. But what we wouldn't want you to do is to put any other signals or signposts into something that's unnecessary, because we don't want recruiters to discriminate against you. So I just thought I'd give you a few examples here of some different types of CV. So here, these are both chronological resumes, and this shows you, so if we look at Jane Smith's, as you can see, it just talks about her different roles, and it gives the dates from which she was in that job, the month and the year, which is absolutely fine. And as you can see, as suggested, there's just a couple of points underneath which says what she did within those roles. And obviously she's done a bit of sales, she's done an admin assistant. I can see here that she's had a couple of years within each role. So that tells me if she's going to come and work for me, she's probably going to stick around, if she likes it, for at least a couple of years. And in the last role, well, she's been there for 5 years. Yeah, at the top, it's given me a summary of her qualifications, which is nice. So it's given me a sense of her skills. And she's combined both technical and a few soft skills there. Yeah, so she's got excellent telephone manner, but then she's also got, she's proficient in Microsoft, and she's got some transcription experience as well, and she can type at 70 words per minute. Okay, so that's told me quite a lot about Jane. So if I was recruiting for an admin person, well, she's got, you know, quite a few years here. She's got sort of, you know, 14 years or so experience of being an admin person. Okay, so when we look at the one on the right-hand side, we can see here that the way that this person has presented this is very interesting, and they've still managed to get lots of things on their resume, but actually the presentation of that is quite different. This actually does stand out. Now, this person has put an introduction, so it's talked about, it's given a little description about them and what their key specialism is. And then they've gone into their experience. So as we can see, they're a bartender, and you can see what they've done there and again, this is chronological. But then on the left-hand side of theirs, they've put their contact details, they've put their education in there, so that's nice and crisp. And then this is really good, they've put some stuff in about what their skills are. And again, when you've not got much experience, this is a really nice way to just display and illustrate your skills. And they've also put some accomplishments in there. So again, a really short CV, but it says a lot about them. And if I was trying to recruit a bar person, this person would absolutely meet the shortlist criteria. Okay. And you can see there in their skills, they've got mostly hard skills, but they've got some soft skills in there as well. Okay. So that's a chronological example. And now these are examples of more sort of functional CVs or competency-based CVs. So if we look at, this is an example which again, you're very welcome to follow. There's so much on the internet if you Google it. You will come up with lots and lots of examples. So here we've got a personal statement. This is a more traditional style. And it says here, this is important because it does say a lot about who you are, and this can actually be the key to unlocking you getting shortlisted. But then you see, look, they've broken down their key skills into technical and personal skills. And so then they've put their certification and memberships and their education. And again, very short. And then if we look on the other side, this is Emma Hayes. This is an example. This is an information technology technician. And so she's put her short work experience on one side and said what she did, but then she's absolutely put her technical skills in on the right-hand side. And she's really, because it's an IT role, she's really given them what a recruiter would be looking. So she's probably looked at the job description and said, right, I need software, I need operating systems and networks and security. And she's replayed that back to the employer. And she said, this is what my technical skills are. She's put her general skills, which are her softer skills. So communication, teamwork, problem solving, attention to detail. And then she's put in some education. And then she's finished it off with some of her interests, okay, which again, some of this might be relatable to her work experience, okay. So again, nicely presented in a very kind of modern way, and this would stand out. So if I had lots of the left-hand side, which are perfectly fine, I probably would have lots in that, but I can see that this young lady here, she's taken some time to really present her CV in a very nice way, which just looks really good and will stand out from the crowd. So even if she didn't meet the criteria, I'd say, well, at least she's taken some time on this application. Okay. So here's some tasks to think about, guys, when you're building your CV. Have a look at it, dissect it, and, think to yourself, what do I really like? What's good and what's not so good based on the webinar? And then try and develop two types of CV, develop a chronological one and then do a skills-based one, and really have a look at what's best for you right now, because right now skills-based might be better than chronological if you've not had much work experience, or a combination of the two. And as you progress through your working life, it may change. You may choose to go more on chronological, but if you've got a very specialist, if you are in IT, for example, or you are a HR person, you might start to eke out more of your skills-based and really sell what you can do within your chosen career path. And then maybe choose a job that you are applying for in the future that you want to do, and spend some time analysing the job description and the person specification and really understand, what does this person want? And we will do more on this next time. And think, would your current CV, would it help you to meet the shortlist criteria? And if the answer is no, and that's your chosen job that you want to go for, either you need more experience at a lower level, or you need to tweak your CV to make sure that it does align to the role for which you're applying for. And again, remember to adjust your CV accordingly for each job. And you may need to write a nice covering letter, which we'll cover off next time. So more importantly, no matter how simplistic or what sort of state your CV is, have a go, draft one, and then your homework really is testing that out. Get some feedback from your family, maybe from your work coach at the DWP, or finally, we're giving you, as part of this program, and not all the Kickstart programs are doing this, but we're giving you a Kickstart mentor. Speak to your mentor, share with them your CV. You've got that one-to-one time, which it's really hard to get in this day and age. You've got a specialist person. Share with them your CV and they will critique it for you. They'll go through it with you and they'll give you some hints and tips around technical skills, softer skills, and how to really, really make the most of your CV moving forward. Okay, so that's your homework, guys, and I hope you've enjoyed this webinar, and please do really make use of your mentors. Get in touch with them. They're being paid, by the way, to help you. So, you know, really take as much as this away as you can. And remember, you're on this placement now. You're going to get skills throughout this placement, and as you go through, you can put those on your CV and really build that up. So I hope you've enjoyed the session. I hope it's not been too long for you, and good luck with those CVs, and I'll be back next time with job applications. Okay, thanks a lot then. Bye-bye.